A. All right, so I was on Twitter earlier because of course I'm always on Twitter, and I saw this tweet here about Klaus talking about his other half dying and how it kind of just coincides with the whole Zanza stuff. And I quoted it saying, "The entire Birth of a Universe cutscene with Klaus is my favorite cutscene in the entire series. It fascinates me. It was what it should have said. Fascinates me every time I watch it. It's the beginning point of the whole series." And then the homie Ollie responded, "The exposition cutscenes are always great in Xenoblade. Zanza's return in 1, this in 2, and the life holds true purpose in X." And that kind of got me thinking about all of the whole big exposition cutscenes in the game, where like the huge plot twist happens, or like the huge lore dump, the main like turning point in the game for the whole series. And I decided, you know, why not let's just make a video about talking all of them and not really ranking them, but kind of seeing which one is the best, which game had the best exposition cutscene. And we're going to be going in chronological order, so 1, X, 2, and then 3. But yeah, let's just talk about them. So starting with Xenoblade 1, the cutscene where it is revealed that Zanza was living inside Shulk the whole time. Dixon shot Shulk, and it's revealed that he was Zanza's disciple this whole time, and then Zanza explains everything about how he took over Shulk as his vessel for his whole life, in order for him to like resurrect and come back. Now this is one of my favorite cutscenes in the game, not just because I used it in my Tragic Story of Klaus video. I did rewatch this cutscene quite a couple times, but I don't know, Zanza is just a cool character. I used to hate Zanza, I didn't like him at all, but now he's a pretty cool character. And this was actually a genuinely surprising point for me when I first played through DE, because I first played Xenoblade 1 on the 3DS, alright, and then I got up to the mum car fight, and then I just dropped the game because I was just struggling. I couldn't pass the mum car fight, so I just dropped it. And then eventually I got DE, played through the whole game, and beat it. So everything from the mum car fight onwards, it was completely new to me. I hadn't seen before. Mind you, I played Xenoblade 1 after Xenoblade 2. So after all of that, and then we got up to this cutscene where Dixon shot Shulk. That one surprised me. I was like, what the hell happened? Why is Dixon doing this? And then here comes Zanza out of nowhere. It was like, what? Who's that? Another Shulk? It was great. My reactions were great. I wish I could go back and see my reactions because it was hilarious. But yeah, Zanza comes out and he explains everything. And this, I didn't see this coming at all. I'm sure a lot of other people as well just thought Zanza was Arglist, like that giant. I thought that was Zanza. I didn't know Arglist was a different character. I don't know if it's explained after this cutscene or I just didn't pay attention, but I thought that was Zanza. So when this Shulk looking guy comes out and reveals he's Zanza, I was like, what is happening? But this whole cutscene is just cool. And then Mayneth starts talking through Fiora. The whole thing is just dope. All right, this is right after a high point where Shulk and Egil finally make a truce, and then here comes Dixon fucking everything up, and then Zanza comes out. So this cutscene was actually really dope, and it actually does well in kind of as like a plot twist. All right, the lead up to it was great. No one expected Dixon to come out of nowhere and shoot Shulk. All right, at first we didn't even know what happened when he got shot, and then it panned over to Dixon, and then it explained, oh, Dixon is Zanza's disciple. And this was foreshadowed throughout the game multiple points, most famously when the party is leaving Maktha, or when they're leaving Sotoro Marsh. He says, I don't feel too good about deceiving these kids. That part is like the biggest foreshadowing moment that he's up to something. Something's not right. But I don't think anybody would have guessed that he was Zanza's disciple. All right, or that Zanza would actually come back like this. But everything from this point onward, the whole game is just go time. everything's serious, and like it's dire situation all the way up until the very end. So there's not really time to, you know, take breaks and fuck around, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this cutscene overall was a pretty nice cutscene. It's probably one of my favorite in the whole game, if not my #1 favorite cutscene in the whole game. Just everything about it was great. The introduction of Zanza, the true intentions of Dixon, all of that, the whole Shulk thing. So I like this cutscene quite a bit. It's great. Now for Xenoblade X, this one I kind of want to talk about a couple things. Now the main exposition dump, or huge plot twist I guess, is when Elma explains to everyone that their consciousnesses are stored in the Lifehold core and that their bodies are actually gone, because throughout the whole game we were led up to believe that everyone in NLA, all their bodies are stored in the Lifehold core and they are controlling their mimeosomes through their actual bodies in stasis. And then it's revealed that, oh, actually all the bodies were destroyed on Earth and all of your consciousnesses are just uploaded into the mainframe, all the consciousnesses with all their biological makeup, and they're able to actually recreate their bodies, but it's not the same original body they were born in. Even though that's the big like main plot twist, there's also kind of a smaller one that I want to talk about Elma revealing that she's actually an alien. I like that one a lot too. But Xenoblade X is more on the side of realism than the other 3 games. It feels like stuff that happens in X feels more possible. Cause like Mechon and shit, Mechonis and Bionis, obviously that's some fantasy stuff. The World Tree is about the most realistic thing in Xenoblade 2, like the World Tree and the Orbital Ring. They are feasibly possible, but they're not really practical. But I guess because Xenoblade X is takes more inspiration, I guess, reuses more stuff from the real world. I mean, NLA is literally New Los Angeles, and it has the United States with the flag on the side of it. So Xenoblade X takes more from reality than anything else. And I'm already like a huge nerd for like astronomy and space and all of that, and just like space travel, just stuff like that to do with space. So, you know, humanity leaving Earth on these massive arc ships to travel through space to find a new planet, stuff like that. Just, I love sci-fi. All right, I love sci-fi. That's why I like Xenosaga so much. And Xenoblade X is probably the closest to Xenosaga in terms of like the whole sci-fi thing. So just the whole story about Xenoblade X, I know Xenoblade X gets a lot of shit for its story, how its story isn't as fleshed out as the other games, but mind you, you have to remember that Xenoblade X's big focus was the exploration and exploring Mira. You know, these 5 massive continents that you get to just explore seamlessly whenever you want with absolutely no loading screens, no barriers. So Xenoblade X, or Mira, was just like a massive, that was the whole point of Xenoblade X, was to explore Mira, while the other games' story was the main focus. So yes, Xenoblade X didn't have as strong of a story, but that's natural given that the main focus was the exploration. And even still, with how little story it had compared to the other ones, it's probably my second favorite story in the whole series compared to Xenoblade 2. Obviously Xenoblade 2's story is my favorite, but X's is up next because of how like sci-fi and space themed the whole game is. That's a huge part why I like Xenoblade X. And just learning that the whole game we were under the pretense, I mean, up until we fought the Ganglion in Oblivia, we didn't know that we were actually mimeosomes until Cross got their arm blown off and saw it was like all robot parts, and then it's revealed, oh, you know, we're just mimeosomes and being controlled from our actual bodies in the Lifehold core, which is why we need to find the Lifehold core, because that's where actual bodies are at, and we need to get back to our actual bodies. Then it's not till near the end of the game Elma explains, yeah, all your bodies are fucked, they're dead, they blew up with Earth, but we do have the consciousness and all of your DNA and, you know, biological genetic makeup to recreate your bodies. That part really hit me for some reason. I don't know. That whole cutscene was just great, and then Elma revealing that she is the only one actually controlling her Mimiazome. She's the only one who still has her original body. And the whole thing about Elma, we don't really know anything about Elma in her true form. We don't know where she came from or why she came to Earth to help the humans with the war going on over Earth. Like, there's so much backstory about Elma we don't know, and that's why we need a sequel so desperately. We need all of this stuff explained and some backstory about Elma, which eventually, if we do get a Xenoblade X sequel, which I'm pretty sure we will, considering the 2 massive cliffhangers at the end of the game, maybe X will be like its own little mini series, kind of like Metroid, how we have the main 2D games and then there's Metroid Prime. So maybe we'll have the main numbered Xenoblade games and then a whole like X series, the whole Mira saga. So I really hope that's the case. I doubt it, but it would be pretty cool, and a sequel to X would answer a lot of questions. But just the whole story of Xenoblade X, especially the ending with these 2 cutscenes, really like hit me. I can't really describe why. I guess it's because I just have an affinity for the whole sci-fi and space stuff, so I guess I was just like extra drawn in by it. It was great. I love Xenoblade X, the story, the gameplay, everything about it. It's just sad that it never got ported, because people do really want to, like, people need to experience this game, and a lot of people want to, but a lot of people aren't willing to buy Wii U just to play Xenoblade X, especially when online is being shut down next year in April. So that's even less of a reason for people to buy it, which is even more of a reason that it needs to be ported. And I don't think it would be that hard to port over Xenoblade X, even though it was heavily dependent on the gamepad. They could rework that, just like Pikmin 3 was also very heavily dependent on the gamepad, and they made that work. They could just map all the gamepad stuff, like the Frontier Nav and everything, to a separate like minus button menu. You could, I'm sure there's a way they could figure it out, but maybe they are working on an export, who knows. But yeah, Xenoblade X is amazing, and these 2 cutscenes are incredible. Now this one is special. As many of y'all know, and if you've been watching my channel for a while, obviously you know Xenoblade 2 is my favorite game in the series. It's my favorite game of all time, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I've also talked about how this cutscene is my favorite cutscene in the entire series. I literally said it in the tweet at the beginning of this video. This cutscene right here, this, I don't know what it is about it. I guess it's the whole like sci-fi thing as well, but the whole game was leading up to this moment. Obviously it's the big like exposition dump, that's how RPGs work, but the whole game we were learning about the world tree, like this massive world tree where Elysium is said to be, with enough space to house everyone in Allrest, even with you know, hella more room to spare. We kept hearing about all these legends and myths about Elysium, and we finally get to the world tree and we realize, or we learn, that it is just like a massive tower, a massive space elevator. And then we finally get up to Elysium and it's just this barren wasteland. Like, what happened to it? And we finally go make it through the church and we meet Klaus, and then he gives us all this entire giant lore dump about how the universe, how the world came to be, why Allrest is the way it is, where Blades came from, where Titans came from, you know, the whole world tree, everything. He explained everything, and it was just such a huge, it's like such a huge moment. All right, all of this lore just dumped on us. We finally meet Klaus, the architect that we've been hearing about the entire game. We learn where the Aegis cores come from, where Blades themselves come from, the Cloud Sea, everything, like literally everything in the game was explained here by Klaus. Like, this is the god of Allrest basically, and we're finally meeting him. We're talking to him right now. Like, it was such a huge moment, right? This was such a huge moment. We go in and we have those shadow fights with Rex, and you know, those are everyone's feelings deep down, and that was, the whole thing was cool. And then we saw Pyra and Mithra there, and they weren't acting themselves, and all of this was just a test from Klaus. And then we finally see Klaus, and it's just a whole cool moment. And then we see that half of his body is missing. Just the entire cutscene. I can go on and on about this one for hours, but this cutscene, I don't know, it just described the entire game. It explained, well, not everything, but most of the unanswered questions and the things we've been learning about throughout the whole game were answered here by Klaus. He's the reason for everything. He's the reason why all of this is happening, right? He created this world basically. And just this entire thing was just so dope. Seeing everything about the core crystals, they were basically made to recreate like human brain cells, and then they grew into blades, and then eventually blades grow into titans, giving birth to more blades, and then created the Cloud Sea in order to give birth to titans. Everything was just so amazing in this cutscene, and sometimes I'll still go back and watch this cutscene over and over, and it just amazes me every single time. I can't get over this cutscene and how amazing it is. I don't know. It also gives me like a super sci-fi spacey type of feel to it as well. So I guess that's also a thing, because I just love the whole world tree. The world tree is my favorite area in Xenoblade 2. And then Radamanthus, just to build on top of that, we're literally overlooking Earth, and we see this orbital ring going across Earth, disappearing into the dark abyss of space as it, you know, wraps around the Earth. It's all just so cool. I am such a huge nerd for space and stuff like that. So this really hit me hard. And just going up to Radamanthus, seeing this abandoned like spaceport, it was so cool. I love this type of shit. Right, that's why I'm so like attached to Xenosaga, and I'm so mad we didn't get Xenosaga 4, 5, and 6, because not only would that explain a hell of a lot more shit that, you know, has been unexplained, like who the hell Wilhelm is, where he came from, what his whole deal is, and just a bunch of other stuff, more characterization for the other characters, because Xenosaga 1 was mainly about Xion, Xenosaga 2 was mainly about Rubido, and 3 was, even though I haven't finished 3 yet, Xenosaga 3 is more kind of about just like Wilhelm, and like, not Wilhelm, but like the eternal recurrence and learning about the universe. It was again more about Xion, because the whole thing with her going back in time, which wasn't even really going back in time, all of that was just, when we went back to Old Milsha, I forgot. I already passed that part. I have those parts up, but we learned about, you know, the whole Milsha. We went back in time to the Milshan conflict, and it was revealed that that wasn't real. I think that was Xion's subconscious we were in. I don't remember the whole thing, but I'm getting off track. The point is, Xenosaga 3 was about Xion mostly, just like Xenosaga 1. So 4, 5, and 6 would most likely have focused on the other characters. All right, getting more Ziggy backstory, even though we got Pied Piper, I'm sure they would have expanded on him a little bit more in the other games. We learned a little bit about Chaos. Cosmos has had character development throughout all 3 games. So, and then we even got to learn more about Momo as well. But the majority of the character development was on Xion for the first and third game, and then Rubido for the second game. So just having the games, and even we could have learned more about the non-party characters. Like I said, we're going to learn more about Wilhelm. We could have learned more about Margulis and Ormus and all of that. It's just, there's so much unanswered shit in Xenosaga that the last 3 games would have explained. But again, I'm getting off topic. That has nothing to do with this, but I really do like space and all of that. So this cutscene about the birth of the universe, you know, it's literally the birth of the universe. He's going through how he created the world. That kind of has to do with astronomy a little bit, creating the world, and it's all taking place in this massive abandoned space colony. It's all just so cool. The ending to Xenoblade 2 is just, it'll always be my favorite. Xenoblade 2 was my first game, so the ending to it just hurt. It hurt, alright? No game has ever made me feel the way Xenoblade 2 has. I don't think any game ever will even come close to that. So I'm glad I experienced Xenoblade 2 first and I didn't play like any of the other games first. I'm glad Xenoblade 2 was my first game. So I don't know how I'd feel about it if I say played 1 or 3 first, but I'm glad I started with Xenoblade 2 because goddamn, this game is amazing. Klaus is already one of my favorite characters since, you know, I already made a tragic story video about him after Shania. I have 3 right now. I have one on Shania, him, and Nael. I do have 2 more coming that I'm working on. One being a Xenoblade 3 character and another being a Xenoblade X character. Alright? So look forward to those. I know I said that a long time ago and they're nowhere to be found, but still working on them. I just have a whole nother channel that I'm also trying to keep running, but I will get there eventually. But yeah, Xenoblade 2 is amazing and this cutscene is absolutely phenomenal. Now Xenoblade 3's was kind of tough. There's multiple like different big exposition cutscenes or like plot twist turning point cutscenes. There's one when we find out who the consoles really are. I mean, even at the beginning of the game when we find out about Van Damme, the Ouroboros Stone, and who the real enemy is, which are the consoles who turn out to be Mobius. And then there's also learning about the fake queens, and then there's just a whole lot. But I feel like the most important or biggest part, even like not counting all the N and M stuff about the homecoming, because that chapter 5 was a very big hitting point for a lot of people. That was like, damn, that was the main turning point of the game. But I feel like the whole, like overall in the message of Xenoblade 2 and the whole, or Xenoblade 3 and the whole story of it, the most important part was when they make it to this city and they find out about, you know, other life. And when they find out, oh, people have kids and grow old. And right before that, Monica teaches us about the cradles and how their lives are just being recycled. And then once they die, their body's recreated back at their first term, and their life is just an endless cycle. But like the cutscene where we see the woman just gave birth and they all get to like touch the baby and see the baby in real life. Like that whole cutscene was just so overwhelmingly wholesome. That cutscene was so heartwarming, especially Tyon and how he just gets overly excited about it. It's great. I love that cutscene. I always get a massive smile watching that. I even got one right now just talking about it. That cutscene is so wholesome because the whole game has been very serious and about all of this death and bloodshed and war, and then we finally get to relax with this heartwarming moment about, you know, the children being born and how life really is. It's just great. This entire cutscene I feel is like the most important cutscene of the game. That's kind of what the whole message above Xenoblade 3 is, and just like realizing the life we have and enjoying it and appreciating it for what it is, right? Even when, you know, it just feels like an endless cycle of pain and suffering, be thankful that you're actually still alive and you have a life to live. And just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you're having a bad life. Life will always get better most of the time, but life can always get better. I guess I should say that instead. Life can always get better. You just have to fight for it and make your life better. No one else can do it for you. You have to make your own life better. But if you want something, strive for it and you will achieve it. So yeah, it's cool. I like this cutscene. I love Xenoblade 3 and just the whole series in general. But yeah, that cutscene's amazing. Everything about it, just seeing everyone so happy after everything that's happened throughout the entire game, finally seeing everyone smile and laugh and be genuinely like surprised and happy about this. It's so heartwarming to see after all the fuck shit we were put through. But yeah, this is great. I love this cutscene so much. But yeah, that's all of them. Now, which one I think was the best and had like the biggest impact on players? See, as much as I want to say Xenoblade 2, since that was such a huge moment with like basically the whole game being explained away, everything about the game was explained in that one cutscene by Klaus. And if you think about it, the entire series of Xenoblade 2, or the entire series of Xenoblade 2, the entire series of Xenoblade happened because of Xenoblade 2, specifically because of Klaus's experiment. If that never happened, the entire series, minus X of course, maybe, I don't know how connected X is, it might be connected somehow, maybe we'll get an explanation in a sequel, but the entire series of Xenoblade wouldn't have happened if Klaus never did his experiment, because the whole reason Xenoblade 1 even happened is because Klaus did his experiment and using the Zohar to reset the universe, created multiple little pocket worlds, and Xenoblade 1 was one of them. And then Xenoblade 3 is happening because it's the culmination of the Xenoblade 1 and 2 worlds coming back together to rejoin into one. So everything, literally everything happened because of Klaus in Xenoblade 2. So like Xenoblade 2 is like the big starting point of Xenoblade. If there was like a timeline, or like Xenoblade 2 would be at the very beginning. The whole thing is because of Xenoblade 2. Klaus is the progenitor of the series. But despite all of that and how huge that cutscene in Xenoblade 2 is, I think the one in Xenoblade 3 about the cycle of life hit a little harder, because it's something everyone can kind of relate to. Even though Xenoblade 2's was huge, all right, that's not really as relatable or realistic as Xenoblade 3's was, because we're climbing up this massive space elevator to meet the god of this world and he explains how he created it. Like, that's never going to actually happen. And not that stuff being unrealistic is bad, all right, there's a certain point, there's a certain amount of realism you can have before it just gets boring. Now, realism is always nice to see in games, and there's a reason why so many people like it, because it's relatable, it's real life, so it's something we can like connect with. But fantasy stuff also does work because it plays off of your imagination, but realism seems to like hit people a little harder than like fantasy does in most cases. But even sometimes realistic stuff can get a little bit old and not as engaging. But at least for Xenoblade 3, this is something everyone has experienced and might experience again at some point if, you know, people decide to have kids. But here we learn about the cycle of life and how life really is, how kids are born and then they grow into adults and have their own kids and they grow old, and just everyone is happy. They get to raise their kids and everyone lives together throughout their life, all through the years. And we're not just fucking husks that are just recycled over and over again for endless war. Like this one, this is really how it is. This is how it is for everybody. All right. Doesn't matter who you are, what race, what sex, you know, anything about you. Everyone has experienced this exact thing and will experience this exact thing. And sometimes people will experience multiple times if they have kids. So this was like a really big hitting point for a lot of people, because I guess this part was foreshadowed a bit throughout the game, but this was like the big payoff that everyone was waiting for. This was the big moment for the game, like the actual cycle of life, because the whole game and even the promotions we've been learning about, the 10 terms, you know, the endless cycle of war and death and bloodshed and all of that. And then we get this where we're learning about the cycle of life and how life actually works. It's a great moment. All right, it's a great moment. So I feel like Xenoblade 3's cutscene was quote unquote the best. Obviously it's going to be subjective for everyone, but in terms of like biggest impact and how it was handled, I feel like Xenoblade 3 did it the best. But hey, that's just me. All right, maybe I could be completely wrong, I don't know, but I think Xenoblade 3 handled it the best with its themes and how it went along with it. But yeah, that's really about it. I love talking about Xenoblade. I kind of miss making content. I don't make content like I used to because I've become less motivated and more lazy over time. So less content like I used to make, but I do want to start making content like I used to. But you know, that's something I gotta work on. But I just love talking about the series in general and just having discussions with y'all about it. See, I read all of my comments, even though I might not reply to all of them. I still read all of them. All right, so I love like having conversations with y'all and just discussing stuff about the series in the comments. It's great. I love like building a community and interacting with them. But yeah, that's really about it. Let me know which one you think was the best cutscene or like had the biggest impact, or just your experiences with it. Just talk to me. All right, but yeah, that's really about it. So see you next mission and play some goddamn Xenoblade.